All right. Thank you all for coming today. This is really great that you come to the monthly meetings and that we're able to provide you with some quality learning materials to help you support your business. Thank you. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Lori Cody.
Okay, well, I'm going to introduce Mary Ann. Mary Ann is known as the Home Stagers Coach. She is a trained personal and professional development coach, and she's owned and operated her own home staging business since 2005. And she also has 27 years of real estate experience. Mary Ann has coached many of the stages throughout the country, and she teaches them how to level up their business by developing both mindset skills and savvy business strategies. Today, Mary Ann is going to be helping us with our pricing for profit. So I'm going to hand it over to Mary Ann, and then Mary Ann at the very end, if you want to tell us about your podcast, I'll leave that to you.
Great. Thank you so much. I did a PowerPoint. Don't judge me on my PowerPoint, guys. It's just to keep me on track here. So can we share this? Let me see.
I'm trying to do that right now. 1 second. I think someone
I can just use it as a guide. It's no big deal if we can't.
I think someone might be signed in as me.
Yeah, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm looking at.
Should I screen share?
Yeah, Deb, I think you're signed in as me. Oh, wait, I got it. Okay.
Okay.
We should be good. Mary Ann, you should be good.
Okay, tell me if you can see it. Let me just see. Can you guys see that?
Yep,
Yes.
we can.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, let me see. Go to slideshow. Okay, and again, guys, I didn't spend a ton of time on the PowerPoint. I'm just focusing on the content, so don't judge me on this. But in any event, today I wanted to talk to you guys about pricing for profitability, because I think that I see a lot of times with the clients that I coach and the people that are in my Facebook group and just different stagers that I meet, I think a lot of stagers aren't charging enough. And I think everybody wants to know exactly what they should be pricing. And there's no one answer. And this is where you have to use your critical thinking to see what your pricing is going to be for you. And I'm going to try to guide you through that thought process and the mindset behind pricing for profitability. So, just real quickly, Laurie went over this. I've been in the real estate business for 27 years. I've been coaching since 2014. I'm a trained coach. I was trained at Coactive Training Institute in Boston. And I've been staging and designing since 2005. I have a podcast we'll talk about at the end. And I co-wrote a book on marketing for stagers. All right, that's enough about me. Let's talk about pricing. All right. I want you to think about the fact that you're not getting paid what you really think you are unless you really look at your numbers. And a lot of times stagers say, well, I'm not a numbers person, or that's not my, forte, but it's really important that you look at your numbers critically so that you can make sure that you're being profitable. So just as a scenario, and when I throw out these numbers, guys, I'm not saying this is what you should be charging. I'm just using these numbers randomly as an example, because everybody's going to be charging different things. So let's say you're billing out at $100 an hour and you're doing a staging job. And in your head, you're thinking of how many hours that's going to be. And you decide it's going to be 14 hours for everything. And I'm not saying that all staging jobs are taking 14 hours, but you're saying, okay, 100 billable hours, I'm going to spend 14 hours for my labor. And so I'm charging $1,400. So that is kind of how you came up with that figure. And, you may even think that $100 an hour is great, because when you have an employee mindset, that was really good. If you were getting $100 an hour as an employee, that was really good, right? And a lot of times the way we're indoctrinated to think affects the way that we price. And so maybe you were making $25 or $30 an hour, or even $50 an hour when you worked as an employee. So let's say you were making $25 an hour as an employee, and you think $100 an hour is great now, because it compared to $25 an hour, that's $75 more an hour. But if you really look at the numbers, out of that $1,400, you have to pay for inventory. You have to pay for taxes, including more Social Security tax than you would have if you were an employee. You have to pay for your marketing and your health insurance and your retirement funding. Perhaps you have a staging assistant that helps you with the jobs, or a virtual assistant, or a bookkeeper, or any other outsourcing that you do, maybe for your marketing. And perhaps, depending on your business model, you have a warehouse, and so you're paying for those bills. And so there's a lot of costs that come out of that $1,400. I just want you guys to think about it differently, because we think that, you know, if we're making $100, $200, $300 an hour, and we're really not. So I want you to start really looking at what you're taking out of that and what your profit is. So when you look at the numbers, all of a sudden you realize that you're really not making as much as you thought when you start taking all of those things out of it, right? So you have to do your homework. You have to sharpen your pencil. You have to look at your QuickBooks. Hopefully all of you have a bookkeeper, and you really have to know, you know, how profitable you're being by what are you spending on expenses, and then what are you making? And again, that $100, you have to look at everything that's taken out of that. So you want to start by asking yourself these questions. So you're kind of starting with the end in mind, right? How much do I want to make per year? A lot of people say, I want to make 100,000, right? And so what will that mean? Doing the types of jobs that you offer most, right? Maybe it's occupied staging. How much do you make for each occupied staging? And you have to factor that into what you want to make per year. So how are you going to make your money? Are you going to do it with consults? Are you going to do it with occupied stagings, e-design, redesign, referrals that you might get? If you have some kind of referral system, model homes, investor flips, what is your business model? And when you look back, you know, hopefully at your taxes from last year, where did most of your business come from? And is this something that you want to continue? So some people say, you know, I thought I really wanted to do occupieds, but I'm realizing because of lugging things around and dealing with people that are there and pets and this and that, I don't want to do it anymore. So going forward, what will your business model be? And what will you be charging for that particular package? And how many do you need to do per week, per month, per year in order to make that 100,000? So I want you to think backwards. This is what I want to make, and this is how I'm going to do it. No, you might have a blend. You might say, I want to do half consults and half models. Then what would that look like? Because I want you to drill it down. I mean, with my coaching clients, I even drill it down to, this is what they want to make per year, and this is how they're going to do it, and what are they going to have to do in order to do that? So if it means that they're going to get the business from real estate agents, for instance, and they want to make $100,000 a year by doing consults, just consults, and they know that their source of getting that business is from real estate agents, then how many real estate agents are they going to have to reach out to in order to get the business? So drill it down to $100,000 a year. Let's just say I'm charging $400 per consult. I would have to do 5 consults a week in order to make that, right? Because 5 times 400 is 2,000 times 50 weeks is $100,000, right? You guys following me?
Yeah.
Do you want me to go over that? Okay. So then what you want to do is, now they're building their business with real estate agents, and you know that you've been calling or reaching out to 10 agents and you only got an appointment to actually meet with one of them. How many calls do you have to make in order to get that one appointment? How many times do you have to reach out? In other words, then calendar it in. Because it's so easy to say, I want to make this amount of money, but not actually taking the actionable steps that are going to get you there. So if you know that most of your consults are coming from agents like mine are, you want to leverage that. You want to pour gasoline on it so that you have more agents referring you and paying for your consults. And so how many agents do you have to reach out to in order to get those results? If you find that you make 10 calls, and you get an appointment with one and you actually get a job from one, then you know it's a 10-to-1 ratio. And it may change as you get more confident, but you have to take those actionable steps. So how will I make money? And what will that look like? And how much do I make for each of these jobs on average? And then do the math. So if you say, you know, I make $1,000 on a staging job, I want to have one staging occupied per week. And this is net. I'm talking net. So if, you know, I'm not talking about what you're paying your movers and all that. This is kind of what you're going to be netting. So if I do one of those a week, then I would have to do how many consults to make up that $2,000. Okay, so I want you to really look at your numbers. How many jobs per year do you need to book in order to make what you want, and then drill it down to per month and per week? That's a way that you can track those metrics to see if you're on target. All right. If you know you need to do 5 consults a week and you've only been doing 2, and it's the busiest time of the year, how are you going to compensate for that? Or how are you going to add another stream of income? Or are you going to reach out to more agents, or what are you going to do to make that? You also want to know what your yearly expenses are. Okay, it's really important because it's so easy, again, to think I'm making $100 an hour. That's great, right? But if you don't know what your yearly expenses are, then you won't understand how that's impacted. So you can look at the big picture when you look at your QuickBooks, you know, your profit and loss, look where you're spending money. You know, maybe you're spending money in places you don't want to. And I do, one thing I will say about stagers and designers is I don't think they invest enough in training and learning what they need to learn, because even aside from coaching, being very specific about certain streams of income that you want to leverage, really understanding it from somebody that's been there, I think that kind of investment is really important. But maybe you're spending money on things that aren't helping you move the needle, right? So look at that. And so when you look at what you made last year and what your expenses are, that's what your profit is, right? So you want to really look at that critically. And you want to be crystal clear on how many jobs per year, per month, per week do you need to do in order to reach that goal of how much you want to make based on the business model that you have. I would like to see like a show of hands. If I can see everybody, let me see. Grid video, grid. I don't think I can see everybody on this, but like, how many think that they're charging enough for what they do? Maybe, it's hard for me to see everybody, but maybe you guys can put it in the comments and we can look at it later for questions. Okay, so doing the math is an eye opener. So again, we talked about if you want to make $100,000 a year based on the average of what you get paid per job, how many jobs do you need per year? If you make $1,400 per job, just throwing that out, you need to do approximately 71 a year, 0.71 a year. It's approximately 6 per month, 6 times 12, yeah, or approximately 1.5 per week. That's grossing 100,000, not netting it. So then you take out your expenses. Now, I will say this, you can be grossing $500,000 and only be netting $50,000. So don't let the people that are telling you that they're making 7 figures and 6 figures and multiple 6 figures throw you off track, because it's really not what you make, it's what you keep. Okay. So if your business model is heavy on consults and you want to make 100,000 a year and you're charging $200 per consult, you'd have to do 10 a week. Right now, I will tell you that I know of many of my clients that were charging this and less, like $150 for a consult before we worked together. And it's not profitable. And they were afraid to raise their rates. And I will tell you, even one of my recent podcasts that I've been working with for a little while, she was working with this real estate agent. And I know a lot of you that have been working with real estate agents, you want to keep to a certain price because you're afraid to change it. And you have that mindset of, are they going to pay it? They've been paying me and this is, sure money and all that. And she was afraid to change it, but she decided that she had to double what she was charging. And she was afraid she was going to lose that agent. And the agent, challenged her on it when she raised her rates, but she stuck to it. And that agent pays her that. And she just landed a design job, $30,000 design job, because she stood in her power and she stood in her ground and she was actually willing to walk away. So sometimes you have to get to that point where you just, you understand that, you don't price your services on what you think you can get. You price them on the value that you bring, right? It's a little shift in paradigm. So I will tell you firsthand that I know that there's stages in my area that charge half of what I'm charging. And if I lost consults to them, absolutely. For some people that just want to pay cheap, and I'm not saying they're bad stagers, but I don't want to work twice as hard for half the money, right? So you could do 5 a week and charge $400 and make the same amount of money as opposed to 10. All right. So if you charge $350 per consult, you'd only have to do 5 to 6 per week. If you charge $400 per consult, and then it's your job to find those agents that will pay for it. And typically the agents that will pay the higher fee are smart, savvy agents who are seasoned, who want to work with contractors that they know, like, and trust, who understand that the cheapest contractors aren't always going to be the best. And, think in terms of their resources for painters and electricians. And they know that often a painter that they recommend that's the cheapest is going to be not great. They're not going to show up on time. They're going to be messy. I had one painter in a high-end house. They wanted to be, I did not recommend this painter, but they decided to use their painter. And he actually didn't use the paint colors that I gave them. I gave them a staging consult and he wouldn't use the paint colors that I gave them because he happened to have some extra that he thought looked like the paint color. This was in like a $800,000 house. And so, realtors have a saying, good, fast, cheap, pick two. They will pay more for somebody that they know will treat their clients great, will get great results. So for me with the consult, it's more about results, the results that I'm going to get them. And that's why I take a little extra time to explain why I think they should do the things they do, because if I don't get them on board and buying into the idea of doing all the things that I ask them to do, if I can't get them to buy into what I want them to do so that they can get that $125,000 over asking price that that sellers are getting now or whatnot. And I don't tell them they're going to get 125,000 over, but I might give them an example of a client that just did, right? Because they staged. So if I don't get them to buy into doing what I'm asking them to do, then it's not going to be effective. So my job is to get great results so that they make more money and their sellers make more money. And so my price is based on value and results. And I do follow up with a report. I do believe, I know there's a lot of controversy over it, but I believe it gets me better results because they have a step-by-step to follow. Okay. So you have to ask yourself, what's your time really worth? Because if you're charging $100 an hour, not only is that being eaten into with all the expenses that you have, and again, $200 an hour, $300 an hour, I want you to look at this critically, but there's only so many billable hours that you can charge for without a team. Now, if you have a team, it's different, right? Because you can scale better. You can leverage your assistants to do some of the stuff that you're not doing that, is at a lower rate. So you're not, so you're leveraging your time better. But you want to consider the time that you spend on non-billable hours, the things that you're not thinking about that you're not getting paid for, right? So your marketing, all the time you spend on social media, emails, blogging, SEO, all that, networking events that you go to, scheduling appointments, buying inventory, bookkeeping if you're doing it yourself, even if you're working with a bookkeeper. When I meet with my bookkeeper, I'm still spending a little bit of time with her going over things, maintaining your website, social media, writing blogs, newsletters, doing videos, reels, TikTok. It just, goes on, right? Meeting with agents, investors, and builders, researching, decorating, and marketing trends, getting training or coaching to advance your business. All this stuff you're not getting paid for. It's not billable hours. So I want you to take that into consideration because that means that your billable hours, if you spend 40 hours a week on your business and you start tracking your time, and 20 of those hours are going to non-billable items like this, now you're getting paid $50 an hour, right? If you were 100, because if you're spending 20 hours on non-billable hours and 20 hours on billable hours, it's like you're not getting paid for those 20 non-billable hours. So you have to look at it like you're getting paid half, really. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It's just mindset shifts. And then there's the cost of doing business that a lot of times we don't think about when we're factoring in our pricing. Business insurance, health insurance, marketing materials, website maintenance, training and or coaching, a staging assistant, a bookkeeper, perhaps a virtual assistant, lunches with potential clients. I tell my clients, if you're going to take the agent out, you pay. It's always on your dime. You want their business, you pay. You got to pay to play. Facebook ads, taxes, business license, photographer, trade association fees. If you go to RESA or any of the other events, and then funding your retirement. So all of a sudden, when you sharpen your pencil, you see that the cost of doing business is also eating into your profit. So I want you to start thinking differently so that you're really owning your value about what you're charging and not going for what you think you can get in the market. That's a trap. Now, here's a big thing that I see a lot of stagers worrying about what others are charging in their area, and they try to compete on price to some point, right? They want to know, well, what are others charging? And that intel is helpful in certain circumstances, but it's not the only way you should gauge what your pricing strategy is. So you want to figure out how you can make the most amount of money for each billable hour, those 20 hours out of the 40. And this obviously depends on how you track your time. And then tweak your business model so that you can maximize your time. Now, one way that it is important to know what others are charging in your market. So some of my clients happen to be in the same state, and they did talk to other stages that they had met with, and they did realize that they were way undercharging. And what was good about that was that it gave them the confidence to raise their prices. So that's one way that that intel might help you. But you don't want to be the lowest priced stager out there, because then you become known as the cheapest, and you don't want that. Even if you're new, you don't want to compete on just being the lowest price. You want to compete on the value that you bring. And that's a mindset shift. And then you have to really own the value that you bring, articulate it in all of your messaging and marketing, really dial in your ideal client or clients and who they are, and laser focus your marketing and messaging to them, understand their pain points, their aspirations, and how you can serve them by giving them what they want. So what I mean by that, for example, and I talk about this a lot, is, real estate agents are my ideal clients, but it's not just real estate agents. It's smart, savvy, seasoned agents who have been in the business for a while, who have often worked with coaches, so they use certain lingo that I can use in my copy, like create raving fans, word of mouth marketing, and clients for life. And so these agents are also very competitive, and they're willing to go the extra mile in order to get those listings. Listings are their lifeline. That's how they make money. If they don't have listings in their pipeline and some depth to them, even the ones that make $500,000 worry about not being able to pay their bills if they don't have listings and sales in their pipeline. So you have to kind of get into their heads to give them what they want. So when I, in my marketing and messaging and sales copy, talk to real estate agents, or when I train my coaching clients to talk to real estate agents, it's all about what's in it for those real estate agents when they work with you. It's not about us. It's not about that we're the best stagers since sliced bread. It's about how you help them get listings. So again, that's a value proposition that I want you to start thinking about, because they don't really care. They're comparing different stagers, and all they want to know is how you can make them look good, how you can wow their clients, and how you understand them in a way that others don't. Okay, so this is something that I want you all to think about, because the way that you market is really important. And as the internet has become noisier and noisier, it's even more important to magnetize your ideal clients by understanding them on a deeper level. And that's why, you hear a lot about ideal clients and all that. And it's probably like, oh, well, ideal clients, I'm going to cast a wide net. Every sellers need stagers, real estate agents need stagers, but when you're speaking to different segments, you're going to speak to them differently. So most small business owners determine their pricing by comparing their fees to others in their local market. And again, that can be a trap, because many of their competitors may not be in business for, in another year. I had a situation a while ago where when I was doing more of the hands-on staging, an investor / realtor called me, and he asked me if I'd give him a quote for a condo that he had renovated in the town next to mine. And, I vet out my calls a lot more now, especially because I've been doing it for a while, and I don't want to just run around doing up proposals or, meeting with somebody that's going to pick my brain and not hire me, or wants the cheapest price or what. So I ask a lot of questions, and I asked a lot of questions, and he said it wasn't going to be about price and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, I figured it's the next town over. I'll go meet with them. So I gave him a price. and he had decided to hire another staging company. And so I always go back and ask why, just because you have a right to know that information, guys. And it's just for you in your positioning in the market to understand that. So he was great. He, basically given me the information. He basically said that they could stage it for a month, and I had a 2-month minimum. And so that affected the fact that he went with them. It was cheaper for him because he was only doing a month. So a couple of years later, he calls me and he forgets that he's already talked to me, and he wants me to bid on another property. So I'm vetting him out, and now I know that I've talked to him before. He's forgotten it. And so basically I asked him what his budget was, because if he says $1,500, I know I can't do that, right? So he gave me some crazy amount, and I said, honestly, I really can't do it for that. And I said, I'm curious, you had worked with another stager before, and why didn't you go with that company? Because their price was a little bit more competitive, and he told me they went out, they went out of business. So and I said to him in a nice way, that's my point. In order for me to be profitable, I can't charge that, and that's probably why they're out of business. I mean, so anyways, you want to stand behind the value that you bring to your clients. It's always about, again, what's in it for them. And that's how you build loyalty with real estate agents and investors and builders. You think about what's in it for them and the value that you bring, and think about all the ways that you bring them value. That's what you want to promote. The ways that you make their job easier, the ways that you help them get listings. For investors, you're going to think differently when you're marketing to them, because to them, it's all about numbers and return on investment and being able to get out there really quick and being flexible, because every day is costing them money. So always be thinking about the value that you bring to them and what's in it for them when they work with you. And that's what I want you to focus on in your marketing. I have one client, a coaching client, who underestimated what she was worth in the market. And I gave her an exercise to just write out all the ways every single day that she brings value to her clients. And she said, she was actually on my podcast. And she said, at first, when I started doing this exercise, I'm like, oh, I just wrote out the basic things. She said, but then as I kept doing it, I thought of all the ways that were a lot deeper that I bring value. It could be that you're incredibly responsive to your clients, that, how do you go the extra mile? How do you, what's your value proposition? What do you do differently or better than anyone else? One of my clients is adding photography to her package, and that's a value proposition. So think about the value that you bring and base your pricing on the value. If you're staging houses and I know this is happening, it's happening to me, and I know it's happening to you guys. They're making $125,000 over list price, and the agent's telling you it's because of staging. Make sure that you market the heck out of that. Let everybody know that. That's huge value. And yet, a lot of times stagers are afraid to charge more for what they're bringing to the table. So if you're not confident about the value that you bring, then that will read to others. So when you say your prices, when you raise your prices, you have to be confident about that, and you have to work on your mindset so that even if you're afraid, like let's say you're going to raise your prices, don't price on what you think you can get. Price on the value that you bring. Okay, now I'm not telling you to be crazy and like overprice it by $1 million over what the market's going to bear in your area. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that all of the intel that you're going to gather between what others are charging, what's the high end of what they're charging, what's the low end of what they're charging, what value do you bring that's different? What's your value proposition? How do you market yourself better? What kinds of things do you do that go the extra mile that other stages in your area won't? I will tell you, my clients that are reaching out to real estate agents and meeting with them are getting business, and they were afraid to do it and they're doing it. And that kind of business is repeat business. So what are you doing differently than things that others are afraid to do, or that you're afraid to do? And maybe you could step that up. You also have to believe that your ideal clients are out there. Okay, so I know that there's real estate agents that will pay me happily for my consult and refer me to all their clients. But I also know that there's others that aren't going to pay for that, right? But I help position them so that they use my consult as a tipping point to get the listing. So I'm teaching them something of huge value to them. So I'm thinking, how would this help them? Well, let me just tell you, if you use my consult, I call it affordable and highly effective. And by affordable, I do not mean cheap, because they're paying, a few $100s, right? I don't mean cheap, but it's affordable to them and it's highly effective for them and their sellers. So I know my ideal clients are out there, but I worked with a client in another state who told me that she couldn't raise her prices on her consults. And I said, but here's the thing, there's evidence that your market is bearing it, because I know a stager there that is getting double of what you're charging. So look for that evidence, guys. Look for the evidence of the people that are charging more than you. And that will show you that there's people out there that will pay for it. Instead, we always look for the evidence of why we can't charge what we want, all right? Think about this too. When have you paid for a service more money than other services? Like perhaps you compare them. When have you paid more for a contractor or a dentist? I have an example where when my daughters were young, I interviewed 3 orthodontists. And this was back, my daughter Cosette is 30. So this was back like 20 years ago. And I interviewed 3 different orthodontists in the area. One went to Harvard, had all the credentials, but his office was it felt kind of dirty, wasn't as welcoming. Another one was right in my hometown. A lot of people went to him. But then there was this one that specialized in pediatrics, and everything was around the kids. And he was way more money. And I said to him, I got these estimates from these other orthodontists, and you're so much more. And it was like, it was like $10,000. And this is back 20 years ago. And he said, but that's because of all that I bring. We make it nice for the kids. We do this, we do that. And he focused on the value that he brought. And you can guess which one I ended up going with, right? So think of a time you've paid more for something because you knew the value was better, and position yourself in your market with your offerings to articulate that value proposition that you bring so that you stand out. Don't compete on price, compete on value. And when you give your price, especially if you've just raised your prices, give it like you're telling the time. Don't apologize. Don't over-explain. Give it like you're telling the time. It's a business transaction, right? So you really may have to do some mindset work on believing in your worth, especially if you're raising your prices. But you also have to think about things like, who are my ideal clients? And part of that description of my ideal client is people who happily pay me for my services and sing me praises all over social media. When I worked with a coach years ago, she had us writing those kinds of things when we talked about our ideal client, right? It is about the money, but it's also about the relationship that you have with those clients. You want to feel good about what you bring to the table. It makes you want to work harder for those people, do more, right? Because you feel valued instead of resentful. So be crystal clear about the value you bring to your clients, and don't compete on price, compete on value. And ask yourself these questions. What can I do better than my competition that I can articulate as a value add? It could be things like, one of the things that The fact that I was in the real estate business for 27 years, I could say that to the real estate agents and say, look, I understand you because I've been in your place and here's how I can help you with getting those listings. Because I know sometimes, they're really hard to get, especially in a hot market, right? Especially in a hot market because there's fewer listings. So whatever it is that you can bring in from your past that you can show them how you are different, better, what you offer is more, what can you do better than your competition to show them how you serve them? What sets your business apart? How can you serve up your ideal clients, what they want, what's in it for them, and get them great results? I hit the note of I can help you get listings, and I show the agents different ways that I can do that. How can I be visible in front of my ideal clients so that they know, like, and trust me, right? Become the thought leader in your area, whether it be on Facebook or any of the, whatever platform you use, be the thought leader, be the one that they know, like, and trust. And look at your metrics, see what, don't just throw stuff out there on social media. Look at your metrics. Are you getting clients from your call to action? Are you getting a meeting with those real estate agents or investors or builders? Look at your metrics and see what's working for you and how it's being effective. And how can you make sure that your brand, what you offer, everything about you, what's unique about your personality, all of that is clear and professional. And it doesn't mean you can't be fun or be who you are. Like I tell all my clients, be who you are. People want to work with real people. But how can you make sure that your brand is clear and professional and resonates with the people that you really love working with? Just basic stuff, guys. I mean, you guys probably already know this, but when I was doing an occupied or a vacant, I always plugged in the amount of money I wanted to make first when I was figuring out my proposals. So don't start chipping away at that. If you know that I want to make this amount of money for every time I do, a vacant staging or an occupied staging, plug your number in so that that's not negotiable, because you know that it always takes longer than you think it does, right? Then I add in what the furniture rental is going to be. I worked with a furniture rental company when I was doing it. I didn't want to have the overhead of the warehouse and all of that. And then I typically rented back my accessories. So I charged a small fee for that every month as well. And then you plug in what the movers are going to cost and any out-of-pocket purchases. So for instance, if I do occupieds, I never would put in pillows and bedding and towels. I would buy it on their behalf and then charge them for that. And that would all be part of the contract. And by the way, I always got all of the money up front for the staging before I'd even book it. So some of you do it differently. If you have a credit card that you can charge, then maybe, you feel a little bit safer, but I always got everything up front. For vacants, for me, I found that if it was a model home for a builder or a model apartment, if I did the numbers both ways, one with renting everything, and it was going to be a long term, that 12 months, there was a tipping point where it was actually cheaper for them to buy everything and I would buy it on their behalf. So that was just, sometimes I'd show the builder both ways. This is what it would be if you rented it for 12 months. This is what it would be if you owned it. And of course you can charge markup on furniture and all that, by wholesale, and, you guys can make money on that as well. So how do you deal with price shoppers who just want, the cheapest price? Well, I think one of the things about the price shoppers is that if you're marketing really well, you're going to get a lot of people calling you or reaching out to you, right? And not every one of them is your ideal client. You have to understand that right off the bat. I think sometimes we twist ourselves into a pretzel to try to get a job and we don't understand why we didn't get it, even though we, dropped our pricing and all that. And they're just really just not your ideal client. So you have to make sure that you're okay with letting them go. This is a mindset thing, right? That you are going to leverage your time and get paid what you're worth. And it's okay to let go of clients that don't want to pay what you're worth. And you want to be really clear about your financial boundaries so that you don't cave. So one way to do that is just to know what I don't go out the door for prices. So like if sometimes an agent will say, well, they just need a couple paint colors, right? And it always runs into more than that. You could say, this is my going out the door price. And, typically, this is what I charge for a minimum for a consult like that, right? So knowing that makes it so that when you have that question, you know how to handle it, or they really don't need a paid consult before you do this occupied. Well, the way that I do business is we start with a paid consult, because that way we can because a lot of times there's things that have nothing to do with the staging, and I can determine through that consult where the client is going to get the most bang for their buck. And it may be scraping old updated wallpaper and painting and not staging. I mean, you have to be really honest with them. If there's a limited budget, where are they going to get the most bang for their buck? It may not be staging. And if you got paid for that consult and you gave them some ways to update with, paint colors, and they only had a $2,000 budget, and painting was the most effective way for them to get the most bang for their buck, and then doing all the things that you have in your report, then, they're going to benefit from that. So I always start with a paid consult. But you have to be able to sell that to them and why they want to pay for that if they're, not wanting to pay for that. And it's the way you do business, because whenever you do a consult, it always ends up being more than you think it's going to be. Now with vacants, that's a whole other story, but I'm talking about with occupieds. You want to be clear on who your ideal clients are. You want to ask a lot of questions when they call. You are asking them the questions. You're going to ask them, have you worked with a stager before? What's your budget? Stuff like that. Don't get thrown if they give you a short budget, but you might say, I know that I can't do it for that. Or you might say, I might be able to do just this for that. In other words, you can negotiate. You don't have to even answer it right away, but you can negotiate the scope of the work if you're still getting paid in a way that makes you feel really good. And don't always feel as though you have to answer that question right away. You can let them know that you're going to get back in them, especially if you feel as though you're going to cave. Get better at client attraction, guys. Every top stager that I know that's making the money from the clients, it's because they've worked harder to get more clients into their funnel or getting them to call them. It's a little bit of a numbers game. Every client is going to be a perfect client. The more clients that you have reaching out to you, the more chances you're going to have that they're going to be ideal clients that happily pay your fees. Build your business with word of mouth marketing. That's the best way that you can do it. You can ask your real estate agents to refer you to other people. You can ask your sellers to refer you to other people. Word of mouth marketing, hearing from a second party is the best way. When your real estate agents are referring you, it doesn't become about price, guys. It really doesn't. The real estate agents that have referred me for staging jobs, honestly, if it ends up becoming a job, the agent has already kind of pitched me, so they aren't, price shopping. So, get that second party endorsement and be okay with walking away from people who don't want to pay what you're worth. So change your mindset. Another important thing to do is create pricing packages so that you know what your scope is and what the boundaries are. And so it could be like, I don't know, you guys have to figure out how you want to create them, but, color consults, this includes blah, 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 blah. That's one package. This is what it is. Half day of staging, full day of staging, however it is that you have it structured, be really clear what your packages are. And then, sometimes things don't fit into a package, but figure out a way that you can make it work and then benefit from it. I just had a client who said, I have people that have two model units staged in the same complex. And now they want me to pick up, instead of picking up everything at once at the end, they want me to pick up one now and one in a month. And I said, well, then you have to add the fees that would entail. I mean, you're booking out another full day, even just putting your makeup on, guys, and getting dressed to go to a job, right? You're booking out another day. You have to pay for the movers. Now what you have to do is get an addendum to that contract with the scope of what that would look like. And it's just, she's like, I feel bad about, no, this is a business transaction. This is what it is in order to fulfill the request that you want. So really know what your packages are. Another thing that you can think about, especially for those of you who have warehouses and do a lot of those stagings, is if your business model requires that you do X amount of stagings a week to make X amount of money, how can you improve time management? How can you leverage your time better? Systematize, how you pack your stuff and all of that, and with your assistant. So how can you leverage your time better? This is just a quick little infomercial. I offer one-on-one and group coaching. And if you want to set up a complimentary discovery session with me to see if coaching might be a good fit, then you can just email me and we can set up a time. I also have Facebook groups that if you're not in, I'd love you to join. One is called Fire Up Your Home Staging Business, and the other is Design for Today Collaborative. I don't know, some of you here probably know Debbie Daly and Wendy Wallace-Chuck. The three of us have this group called Design for Today Collaborative on Facebook, which leans a little bit more toward the design elements. The Fire Up Your Home Staging Business is a little bit more towards stagers, but the blend between the two of them is really nice. I also have a LinkedIn group, and I'm on Instagram. I'm starting to use Instagram more, guys. And that's my Instagram, and that's my coaching website. So just as a recap, know your numbers. You're not really making what you think you are. So you want to make sure you're being profitable. Know your numbers so that you can really get a bird's eye view of what you're making and what you're spending and what you're netting. Know what the competition is charging, but don't let that solely affect your pricing, and do not be the lowest. Do not compete on being the lowest, because you'll work twice as hard for less money. Make your time count. Be efficient with your time. If you have an assistant, then you want to make sure that you're doing the needle moving activities and have your assistant doing the things that, like posting on social, setting up your email, running things around, stuff like that. You want to make sure you're leveraging your time to do the needle moving activities. Determine how much money you want to make, and then do the math backwards, and then decide what actions you have to take in order to fulfill that. Evaluate your business model. If the business model that you want to do is not working in your area, you need to evaluate it. Should I be changing my business model to accommodate? I know in my area, in order for me to make any money, when I was doing the hands-on staging, I had to do it with luxury homes. Those were the people that were willing to pay the money. Now, it might be different. You guys can tell me. It might be different now. You guys might be finding that you're doing a lot of, because staging has become more common. But for me, I found that the ones that I got the most amount of money for was for the occupied was luxury. Reframe your mindset so that you feel empowered to own your value. Base your prices on all the intel that you get, but also the value that you bring. Convey your unique value to your ideal clients, and get in front of more of your ideal clients. And don't let price shoppers determine your value. You determine it, and create pricing packages so that you have kind of a framework to fall back on and gauge your efficiency as well as that of your employees. I'm done. But I want you guys, I'm going to check the chat. And if you guys have any questions.
Marianne, I have a quick question. You're talking about creating package prices or pricing packages. I said it backwards, whatever. Do you include that with a consult, or do you keep the consult separate all the time?
I always keep the consult separate, and I'm very clear about, like when I'm working with a client, for them to explain that every home starts with a consult and what that entails. But the consult in itself is huge value. Like, it's not consult just to gather information. It's huge value. I'm giving them incredible value. Like, some of them are just doing the consult and they're getting great results. Now it's tricky with the vacants. But what I started doing was charging a nominal fee for the vacants, because I didn't want to deal with the price shoppers. Unless it's somebody that's loyal to you all the time and you know they're not talking to anybody else.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I think I spend way too much time writing up my reports because I think that's where I'm losing my money.
So how much time are you spending writing them up?
Probably 2 hours.
Okay, so mine takes about an hour. And my consults usually take like an hour and a half. Now, do you get a talker that you have to keep reeling in and it goes a little bit over? Yeah, but I mean, just all coming out in the wash.
Yeah.
So why do you think you're spending 2 hours? Are you giving them, are you sourcing stuff for them? And
Yes. Yeah. So if I'm telling them they need to, swap out a fixture, I'm showing them what I want them to put.
Nope, that's one thing I stopped doing because that's a time suck. And basically all I say to them is, this is how I do it, Laurie. I say, because I don't want to leave them high and dry, because I'm giving them a ton of stuff to do, right? And then I go through each room in the curb appeal and I kind of just recap it, right? Because I can picture in my head, I just recap it. I do not source things for you. If that would be another service, because it takes a lot of time for me to source these things. And I'm happy to do that if you want. However, if you would like to send me pictures of what you are thinking of using, I can give you a yay or an nay.
Okay.
And I find that, most people don't take you up on it a lot because they're overwhelmed when you come to them, but then they start to think about it. I can do that. So then if they do send me pictures and I think it goes in the room, it might not be the exact thing that I wanted, but it's better than what they had. And it's going to look great in the whole scheme of things. Yeah, I don't spend time doing that, Laurie.
Okay.
It is
I
a
think,
time
no,
suck.
you're right. I mean, it makes sense as we talk about it here now, it makes sense. Like the time I'm spending to try to find just the right thing that I want in that room. It's like, I'm not getting paid for it. It's yeah. I'm not that nice. Well, wait, I guess I am.
Well,
But I
and
shouldn't
we're
be.
talking about the value, but
Right.
see, as women, and I'm sure so many of you relate. Now, there's a couple guys here too, and they may feel the same way, but I think women tend to overgive. And I know that that's been like a epidemic of mine, if somebody gives something to us, we want to do 10 things back because women are overgivers. And so if that's you have to reel yourself back. Because the things I tell my clients, sometimes I have to say, Marianne, hello, you should listen to your own advice, And so that was one thing I did, Laurie, because I found that I was spending so much time. Now I'm being their designer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely right. It's like I go in there and I start to, have the heartstrings pull, like, oh, you have to move because whatever reason. Like, yeah. Okay, I get it.
Well, and the thing is, but I wouldn't expect a contractor to work for nothing.
Right.
You know, when I hire a contractor, I'm happy to pay their fees because they're delivering value, you know. You can have that package as an upsell,
Mhm.
like sourcing, lighting, etc., you know, as an add-on or an upsell. You could do that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
You can just, I would just say I'm happy to do it. It's just that it's going to be, you could even say it's going to be this much per hour, prepaid for so many hours.
Yeah.
or whatever, you know.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect
Are you
sense.
charging enough?
No.
Right. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. No, as you were going through, you know, everything you're talking about, I'm like, oh yeah, no. And it's funny because
So
I also own a marketing business, and I tell like that's my other hat. So, you know, I tell my clients the same thing, like, no, you got to do this, you got to, but I don't do it for myself. So yeah.
we're all like that.
Yeah.
So are you going to raise your rates?
Yes, I have to figure out the right way to, I've gone up on some of them already. I have to figure out how to do that effectively, or, you know,
So tell me more. Like, what's stopping you?
um, I guess it's that I've restarted my business. I had a partner for 5 years and that ended. And then I wasn't going to do this anymore, but then the people I had worked with in the past came to me and said, please do it. So I am. And I think because they were faithful to me, I feel like, you know, they're helping me get back on my feet. I don't know.
Yeah, see,
It's
this
all
is
a mindset in here.
it is. And you know, honestly, Laurie, it's that it is a mindset thing, and I get it. Like I want to like when a client works with me, I tend to, you can ask Karen, I tend on giving them a whole bunch of extra stuff that they didn't even, and I do it because I do appreciate their business and I do so want them to succeed in all of that. And I do believe that over delivering on some level is a good thing, like under promise and over deliver.
Mhm.
But I don't believe in not getting paid what you're worth. And that's something I worked on for years.
Yeah.
And so your value to them is not just about what they pay you. They begged you to come back, right? So they obviously see value in you already.
No,
And
I know the stats. I know the ones that I've done have sold for, you know, X amount more than asking price. And I know the market has a lot to do with that. But I think that my service also had a lot to do with that.
it absolutely did. And because the sellers are making more money, and I have this whole PowerPoint where I show how the real estate agents are making more money because of staging. And this is all drilled down and based on their own stats from the NAR. Like if you connect the dots. So the real estate agent's making more money and the seller's making more money. And yet you don't want to charge $100 more or $50 more or whatnot. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's the thing is, the way you got to look at it is you only have so much time in the day to be with your family.
Yeah. And most of mine now is spent on my computer. So
Yeah. And you know, so when you're giving that away, you're taking that time away from the things that are really important to you too. You got to get paid what you're worth, guys.
Yeah.
So anyways, are you caught up in the how to raise your prices or?
probably. I mean, I
So
know I
I'll
should be
give you an
charging more.
easy, I'll give you an easy way. I just, when I built an agent for a consult, I write at the bottom, prices effective, preferred, because I always do preferred agent partner prices, and I give my agents a $25, you know, discount.
Yeah.
So it makes them feel special, right? And it always says, you know, asterisk preferred agent price. So then at the bottom of the bill, I would write preferred agent prices effective as of you know, March 1st, 2022, and then write what they're going to be.
Okay.
And then, you know, it's like, you know, if you go to a store or something, they raise the price of coffee, you know, they don't explain it. They just raise the price.
Right.
You know, I don't know. I mean, you can send out an email, you can do any, but I say we just get so caught up in our heads. It's like if you go to a home inspector and all of a sudden his prices are $50 more, you're not going to say, well, I'm not going to hire you, you know?
Right. Right. Because you got to look at them and say, I've worked with you X amount of time and I know your value. Right. They're going to understand.
Inflation, right? Just look at inflation, guys. I mean, and the agents are making more money because these houses are selling for a lot more money.
Right.
So don't feel bad about it.
Marianne, I do have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
If we went back to in a consult, kind of like Lori was talking about, if they needed to update a chandelier in their living room or their dining room, and we wanted to include that in our report, or they're putting, you know, flooring in an unfinished basement, and they want to know, you know, what kind of style to go with, and we find a luxury vinyl plank on Home Depot and send it to them. I mean, for me, it doesn't take too long because I kind of already have like a few favorites in mind that I would go to that are just generic. But how would you go about that in your pricing structure? Do you charge extra for it, or do you build it in? I mean, not always you go into a house thinking or knowing that you're going to have to give them a few recommendations on pieces. So how would you go about that?
Well, this is the thing. One way you could start thinking about that differently, Ashley, is you could have a curated page that they could go to
Oh,
for
okay.
certain, you know, like one of my clients was going to work on a curated page. So go to this page and this is, you know, here are some links to things that might work. And so then it's because it's when you're taking your time to source things online that it's like if Laurie's spending 2 hours on a report and she could be spending 1 hour, then she's making more per hour. I still think you got to raise your prices, but you're also leveraging your time better. So that's one thing that you could do, Ashley, or sometimes you could just say, whatever your hourly fee is, you know, I'll charge hourly to source the things, because the thing is it often takes longer than you think if you don't already have a curated list,
Right.
you know?
So are you saying like almost you could make like a little PDF document that, you know, says transitional home styles or whatever, or they're mostly transitional, and you find a pendant and you stick that in there, and you find a chandelier and you stick that in there, and any home that you go into that they need a few of these recommendations, you'll say, here's a perfect PDF for the style home that you have, and here's some quick suggestions. That way you don't have to pick and choose for the exact home, but there's a list already.
You could do that. It would leverage your time. It would be a good system if you want to offer that. You know, it's just, you don't want to take your time and not be paid for it over and above
Right.
the consult, you know? Another thing you guys could look into, I don't know if one of my clients uses Side Door, and it's kind of like a to the trade thing. But you end up, you can actually give your clients, and this is for those of you who do design jobs as well, and let's say you're not buying from the trades, you don't want to like deal with you know, the reps and this and that. You can look up this platform called Side Door, and you can actually have links to different furniture and lighting and stuff like that, and you actually, when they click that link, will get a commission from Side Door, but you're not handling all the back end stuff.
That's a
So
great
it's
idea.
something that you guys could look into.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
wonderful.
welcome.
We actually started doing that like curated list because we found that like sourcing lighting was sucking all of our time too once we'd go to a consult. So we started keeping all of our favorites like into a document because you tend to suggest similar things over and over again. But so we're like working on getting that ready to go, but we're going to charge for that. So when we go to a consult and then that comes up, we'll say, oh, for this, you know, like it's another $150, but we, you know, have some lighting that we can suggest, and we might like star or highlight our favorites for that house, but then they'll get the list of lighting as well.
I love it. I love it. And that's why there's not one way to do things, guys. It's what works for you. And I love that idea because you're giving, it's value. You're giving them value for that $150. You've spent the time curating and systematizing that, right?
Mhm.
I love it. Love it. Just going to look and see if I can see any questions here. Quite there yet. Agree with Amy. Closer to charging what you're worth. Host and client too. Some jobs seem so simple and easy, and others we feel as though we didn't nearly charge enough. Yeah, I know, Pam. Thank you for the example. I need to charge more for consults. I'm not camera to drive it. Okay. Distance, time is money, Robin. So are you going to start charging for distance?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I have, but I never feel like I charge enough. You know, between myself and my crew, and you know, I pay them for driving too. So it's really a big deal. I have one in Vermont that I'm destaging this week, and between the snow and the distance, it's like, why did I even take that job? I did charge a lot for it, but still, it's way out of my area. It's 2 hours away one way.
So did you really want that job?
No, I didn't, but it was a repeat client. And they begged me and I said, okay. Like,
Then why didn't you charge a little bit more?
I charged
because
a
of
lot
that?
more. No, I did. I charged a lot
Okay.
more. But still, I'm not looking forward to 2 days of 4 hours driving.
Yeah,
It's a lot. I'll be pretty wiped out, but
yeah,
it's
it
hard to say
is.
no to a repeat customer. You just do whatever.
Well, you
can.
don't have to say no, but you could just charge enough so that you feel as though it's worth it, you know?
I did.
Okay, then you just answered your question.
Did. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes just the distance is not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you can say no to, and maybe what you could have done is because it's so far, you could have referred it to somebody in that area that you trusted, you know?
And I don't know about anyone else in our association, but I'm not aware of any stagers in Vermont. And it must
I
be,
don't know.
I'm
it
not
must
either.
be under the radar if there are any.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe that's where you all should move and start setting up
Right.
camp,
That's an opportunity.
right?
Yeah. But I usually try to stay within an hour
Yeah.
of my warehouse. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're
Marianne,
saying you don't charge enough for art, Robin?
No, well, there's a lot of variables. So I have come up with a pricing system where I pretty much charge by the room. And I let them know that if it's a great room, then that's considered 2 or 3 rooms, depending on how big it is. But I don't always break apart the art items. And, you know, with some big contemporary homes, there's not much wall space. And then with some of these older homes, there's tons of wall space. I've had 2 truckloads of just art, you know, and so I need to price that better. That's a real weak
You
spot.
looked into an inventory management system so you could kind of decide what you're going to charge based on the cost of acquisition and what percent.
Yeah, but it's just analyzing each house and what it's going to need for art. I find that's a big variable. I don't know if anyone else has run into that, but some homes need 3 times as much art.
But I mean, if you pulled those items out of your inventory management system, then you would know for that particular home how much that was going to cost.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I usually just have a lump sum for each room. That's the way I've been doing it.
I gotcha.
And I don't spend days putting a quote together. I can usually do a quote in 2 hours, which makes it more efficient that I'm not spending all
Yeah.
that itemizing, but it is the art factor that is the area where it can really make a difference price-wise. That and bookcases. If I'm staging a bookcase or a house that has a couple of bookcases, that's a lot more inventory too.
So I wonder if for those houses, you could just, you know, and I get it, you don't want to like waste all this time on every single proposal, and it is easier to have an idea of what the room's going to be, but I wonder if they need more art than usual, if you can determine what price that would be. In other words, is it,
Good.
you know,
Yeah.
$100 more or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I could absolutely do that. But I have, you know, over 10 years find that this is an area that's a weak spot for me. You know, if they need way too much art, or if they need a couple of huge bookcases staged, it's definitely a lot more inventory. It could be a whole nother truckload. So I need to charge for it. I just find that's one of my weak spots. I'm not sure if anyone else finds that.
Can I ask a question, Robin? Because you
Sure.
made me and Kristen think of something, because we price per room as well. Like we've started trying to build our packages that way
Yeah.
around weekends. We have a minimum
Mhm,
and then
me too.
work based on rooms. But
Yeah.
you said it like takes 2 hours to write a proposal or
Maximum,
quote.
yeah. Yeah.
Because
I mean,
feel
I can do it in a couple minutes a lot of times. It just depends.
okay. I was like, oh my goodness, I think we might be missing something in our
No,
proposal.
no, I mean, depending on the house, I could do it in a few minutes, but some of these, you know, $6 million houses that have a lot of space can definitely take more time.
Do you go see the house before you price it every time?
Oh yeah, well, most of the time.
Do you charge for that?
Yeah, I charge a consultation fee. Yeah. I do a lot of big homes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Robin, are we talking occupied or vacant? I'm lost for a minute.
Vacant.
So you charge for a bid when you go there.
I charge for a consultation, and I'm doing one today that I'm not charging for, and I regret doing that. But it sounded like they were absolutely going to stage, but I find that it's not always the case.
Right.
But 99% of the time, I charge for a consultation.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of times. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So Robin, do you then take that consultation fee and apply it back to the job, like as an incentive for them to award you the job?
Sometimes, not always.
Okay.
Not always. Yeah. But I, you know, when we were talking about pricing, my biggest challenges were in those areas of art and bookcases, because, you know, you have a standard dining room. This is what you use, a standard living room. Unless it's a massive living room, you could put 2 living rooms in one great room. So, you know, that's where I charge for 2 rooms and not just one. But it is an eye opener looking at all the variables that we talked about today. And I have analyzed it, but I don't think I'm charging enough. And I have gone up on my prices, and I have a 3-room minimum. I do not furnish any houses without doing 3 rooms, so they have to at least pay for 3 rooms. And I think I'm going up on that minimum too. I did go up on it 6 months ago, but I think I'm going to go up again.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good.
You know, I don't know about the rest of you, but the Lakes region is so hot right now. And most houses are selling in a couple of days, and there's just less listings. You know, a lot of towns have 1 or 2 houses for sale. So there's not a lot of opportunities for staging. So the ones that we do get, they're averaging just recently, you know, $650,000 over asking price, or $1 million over asking price, or $1.5 million over asking price.
And you guys are worried about charging more?
I think I need to charge more. I think I need to charge more.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is crazy.
Marianne, do you often see that people charge for vacant bids?
You know, I started charging for vacant bids, but it was like a nominal fee because it was just to go measure and take pictures, right? So I'm like, how can I charge like what I charge for my regular consult?
Right.
And so but I got a little story. I charged $150. I was going to charge this builder who was referred to me. And, I thought he was going to go with me. I really did. But I said, look, it's $150 for me to meet with you. He goes to hand me the money at the consult. And being the nice guy, this was a few years ago before I got a thicker skin. I said, oh, no, don't worry about it. He was going to hand me cash, right? And I said, no, don't worry about it. Because assuming I had the job, right? And he ended up hiring one of my clients, one of my coaching clients, who I love my clients. So it's like, it's a win-win. But he gave her such a hard time through the whole process. He was awful. That was a whole other thing. But yeah, so for vacant bids, because I feel as though it vets people out, that at least charge something so that they're going to feel like, they have skin in the game. That's my thoughts on
You
that.
don't always get the job. So it's
Right, exactly.
your time. And sometimes they just want to pick your brain on.
So Robin, are you getting pushback on that, or are you finding that?
No, not at all. No. And I might refund it back into the staging price when they get it, but not always. But
Right.
I always charge to go out the door.
Because it takes your time, guys,
Yeah.
your travel.
And my territory is around Lake Winnipesaukee. It can be an hour. Like I'm going to be leaving here when we're done. And it's 45, 50 minutes drive just to get there and back. So it's, it's 3 or 4 hours out of my time. So yeah, I do.
Right.
In Rhode Island. And so we stopped going to see before we give our bid. We only go preview the property once we have it. Like we worked on our pricing structure to hopefully, and it's not perfect, encompass what the job will entail. And so we ask all those questions over the phone, and we send along. And then if we get it, then we go preview it and do all of that. Because we found that, that's so much time.
It is. And I can definitely give them a price subject to seeing it. When they say, well, I have a kitchen, living room, dining room, and 3 bedrooms. And then you find out that they have an eat-in kitchen and a formal dining room and bar stools, and they want you to do the porch. And so, you really need a real specific list, but
yeah, we make them tell us all that on the phone.
Right.
In the kitchen, are there bar stools? Like, is there a basement? Like, how many bedrooms? Square footage? Is there any outdoor space? Like, we literally make them go through all of that.
Right.
I like that idea. Do you ever have
to systematize that with a form too? That they fill out, or if you have it on your website, or any other questions, guys? Or
Marianne, I just want to thank you. I listened to your podcast with Lori Matson on price changing, because I had that on my to-do list, but it's one of those things that you don't run into with open arms, right? So because what I found that I did, which is bad, is that I had several different agents at different rates depending on when they came on, and I didn't move some of them along, or some of them I allowed a preferred agent rate that was probably too low to begin with, and I would inch them forward, but they never were quite where I was charging my other clients. So what I did, I'll just share what I did. It might not work for everybody, but what I did was, everybody says to do it at the beginning of the year, but I just was having too much fun during the holidays. So I wasn't thinking about that. So when I got my act together, it was January 15th or so. So I sent an email out, and I just sent it to the realtors that I'd worked with in the past year and a half, like my real regulars. I have a price on my website for all those one-offs and those occasional people, and that's what I charge them. But for all the people that I've been doing regular business with, I sent them an email on January 15th and said, I'll be raising my prices on February 15th. So I gave them a month's notice. I also offered them the opportunity to buy a bulk number of consults at the old rate, and they had the whole month to take me up on that. And I was very interested in seeing what people would do. And only one realtor took me up on it. And I think it's because nobody has any listings. So even my regular realtors who I did 10, 15 consults for last year didn't bite at that opportunity because they don't know when they're getting listings. So I had one realtor, go ahead and buy 5 consults at the old rate. But I did have several realtors call and say, okay, so what's happening? What are you raising? I mean, they didn't take it like, but some didn't reach out, but some did, but they were kind of concerned and wanted to know more. And, I thought that was interesting. I also had to look at what's going to be my new rate. And I, did a little research, looked at other stagers. I did a little research on how people in other industries do price increases. And a lot of other industries look at, a percentage, how much of a percentage are you going to raise your prices instead of saying, I'm going to go from 250 to 350, that's a heavy percentage. That's a third. I'm bad at math. I don't know don't quote me on that. I don't know how much percent that was, but I did calculate what I have ended up moving mine up. And I think it was, 15%, which when you think about it is, sizable. So that's what I did. And, nobody was like, I'm, firing me, and most people were accepting, but many people did call and just when they called to schedule their next appointment, were very curious about it and tell me more, how's it working? So I ended up having to talk about prices.
So what did they want to know? Like what was their
just
concern?
let me understand. So you're raising it to what? And they wanted to know about the offer, and if I buy, how long does that last? Even though I said it, they're just kind of picking it apart a little bit. And these are people that hire us all the time, but it's not so, it was interesting for me to see their perspective, everything's more expensive now. And now so that was part of what was kind of a pain point for me. It's like, I'm going to join the bandwagon and raise my prices and everything's more expensive.
Yeah, but you also have to pay higher fees for everything, Pam. That's the thing.
True. I know.
And
nobody was
do you think that Amazon cares when they have to raise prices because of gas or something?
Yeah, I know. But you're right. My costs have gone up too in big ways, really. And that was part of the reason why I did that, because I have so much more overhead now and people I'm paying and whatnot. But it was just, I did it. This is, I guess, the most important thing. I did it. I haven't done it that officially before. And, though I don't think that it's changed their willingness to hire us, but I was interested in their sort of like, wait, what, but some of them have been at the same amount and much lower than they should have been for a long time. So I just had to move through it.
You listened to Laurie's podcast and she talked, she was one of my clients. She's still one of my clients, but, she was charging, I think like $150 and she doubled it. And she was so afraid she was going to lose the business, and she hasn't lost any business. In fact, she just booked a $30,000 design job. And again, she was, worried about how they're going to, take the price and blah, blah, blah. But she did it and stuck to her guns, and the people are more than happy. So sometimes we get caught up in our head and we make assumptions about things. We all do. And we assume that it's because of this or that. But like, seriously, I just raised my consult prices by like, $25. And at the beginning of the year, and I just put it at the bottom of the bills, effective these dates, the consult prices have gone up and blah, blah, blah. And not one person has said anything about it. Like if they're going to pay one price, they're going to pay $25 more. Now, you might want to raise your prices double because they're already way too low. You know what I'm saying? But then you can incrementally go up. When you're too low, it's going to be more like ripping off the Band-Aid, because if they're not used to that, you've kind of conditioned them that we tell people what we're worth, guys. You know what I mean? So, any other questions or anything I can help you guys with?
I have a quick question, and I don't know if you want to share that here or if you want to take it offline. can you share what your coaching rates are? Or do you have packages or? how
Oh,
do you-
yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah. So I do group coaching, and it's a very small, intimate group. Laurie's in it, Danelle, who's down the Cape, Heather Russo, who's a Massachusetts gal. She's from she services like Wellesley and Natick area. There's a few other people. There's about 6 or 7, and I let my one-on-one clients come to them occasionally as well. So my group coaching, it's a year commitment. I want people that are really committed to building their business. We meet 3 times a month live, and there's replays of all the sessions, and it's $199 a month. So it's an incredible value. And then we have a private Facebook group. My one-on-one coaching is 3 months minimum, and it's $1,200 for 2 sessions a month. So it's basically 6 sessions. It's just one-on-one. And they get me for like up to an hour. So, sometimes they just want me really looking at their business or their marketing, or, the way the mindset things, the way they're reaching out to realtors, blah, blah, blah. So, and we work on all different kinds of things. Like I'm a geek about marketing and really dialing in your ideal client, but also mindset behind everything, mindset behind growth through pushing past your own glass ceilings. The reason I went into coaching was to empower women to, build a business that they really loved, and to do it from an empowered mindset. So, and then I do offer a class. Sorry, somebody just pulled into my driveway. I do offer a class on getting business from real estate agents. Actually, Karen, I don't know if Karen's still here, but she was in my last one. It's a 6-session masterclass. I'm going to be offering it again, I think, in April. I'm sorry, guys. I just have to get my door. Okay. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
I have a question for all you ladies. Has anyone ever charged, instead of, what your fee is per room for staging vacant, have you ever thought of doing it like by the % of the sale? Has anyone ever done that? I've never done that, but
No, but I wish we could.
I know, really, we'd make a whole lot.
Yeah,
whole
I
lot
asked about that a
money.
couple months
You know,
ago.
If you could do a 1% of the sale, and of course you'd have a minimum. So,
I've used it in my marketing,
Mm.
but not so much in my billing. Like I've said, hey, if it's like this price range, you can, average 3% of your sale or whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah,
Marianne,
no.
I was just wondering if anyone has ever charged by a % of the sale for their staging.
Yeah, actually, I know they do that a lot in Florida.
Mhm.
Some of the stages charge like 1 to 1.5% of the list price.
Right.
And it really depends. I mean, I think you should do the numbers all different ways and see how you're going to be profitable. I don't think, like, I really feel like you got to look at all the numbers and look at what, the competition is charging just for intel, right? You don't want to be the lowest. Maybe you want to be the highest, depending on your value proposition. If you specialize in luxury homes and that's your niche, and you have the artwork and, everything that you need for luxury homes, then maybe you do want to be at maybe you want to be the Capitol Grill instead of the McDonald's, right? But yeah, there's different stages. Everybody charges different.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone else does that. So if I started to do that, I would probably be the only one. And I don't know that would be a smart thing.
I think one of the toughest things for us is
if
if it was % of list price, the size of the house varies. Like here, we
Right.
have $1 million house right on the water in Newport, and it's a cottage.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
we could have $1 million house out in the woods that's large.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the amount of furniture we're putting in at that price point would be so vastly different that
Yeah, very much.
I don't know.
Very much so.
mean, I know that, in some areas of the country, that's what they use, and some trainers have told them to do that. That's why I think you have to look at your particular market and what you're offering and think critically about what you're going to charge. I just think that we tend to err on the side of not charging enough.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
From an outsider's perspective, I think it's an amazing idea. You get your hourly wage or whatever you guys charge, and then you get a bonus, whatever the bonus happens to be. You say, if you make money, I make money, right? We all make money. It's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean if they go over list price?
Yeah, and then if it doesn't work out, like if it doesn't go over ask, or maybe you say if it goes over a certain percentage above asking price, then I get a bonus, like as opposed to, and then if it's under asking price, of course you don't get anything. I think it's a nice little bonus.
I love that.
I think you guys should get that. I think if you're increasing people's property sales point for their real estate, you guys should get paid a percentage of that percentage increase that they get. That's how I feel about it. I mean, to me, it's only, I don't know if it's smart business sense, but it's fair. You're not going to take the complete percentage increase, but maybe you get 5% of it or something. I don't know.
As a former realtor and a former appraiser, I would only do that if I could be involved in the pricing. Because if they have such an insane price on it and they don't get it, then you don't get paid. So I would absolutely want to be involved in the pricing. Which
that makes sense. Yeah.
You wouldn't want that, but I have a really good idea of where things should be priced, and I never share that because it's not my job. But it would have to be priced reasonably to get in that situation that you don't get paid if it doesn't sell for that price. That would be kind of risky.
It's still, I guess, in that thinking along those lines, if you still get paid your hourly wage, and if the real estate agent prices it wrong and they come in under asking, you don't get anything. But if they're pricing it in that sweet spot and you get that bonus, you still get a bonus. You're still getting your bonus in addition to your hourly wage.
Yeah, that would be a huge bonus. Massive bonus. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if anybody uses that model. I mean, it would be interesting to know if somebody uses that model and how they can kind of enforce it,
right.
But it would be interesting. I mean,
in this market, most everything is selling overpriced.
Right, because of supply and demand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if it's staged. And that's what I explain to people, especially if it's staged, because people want, move in ready, and they'll pay a premium for it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And Amy did our statistics recently for our whole association, and staged versus unstaged. Stage is typically getting 4 to 5% more than unstaged. So,
So if you do the math, 4 to 5% on a $500,000 house, that's a lot of money. That's like $25,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it would be nice if we could do that. I don't know. It might have to evolve in time. But then again, when the market's bad, it might not be good for you either. So, but I don't see this market changing anytime soon.
It's all supply and demand.
There's no supply. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As Mary Ann had mentioned, I had signed up to take her class on how to get real estate agents to refer you. And this was something that came up. What I was struggling with was running into realtors and brokers who would say, well, the market is so great, we don't need staging because homes are selling so much over asking. And so Mary Ann, really, you put it into perspective and how to guide realtors to teach them and educate them on the value of staging and photography and how the before and after photos. And so that was just so helpful going back to that class that, the session that we did together was very helpful, because at that time I was doing a presentation and I was on a panel and I was kind of floundering, and, Mary Ann, you really helped me with, the slides and, to try to present that and to show the increase and the value that you can bring. So that is what I've run into quite often with what is the value of staging if we can sell it anyways. So you really have to push, I suppose, with that and to connect and market. And I found it very helpful, the tools that you
Thank
provided.
you. And what one of the things that Karen's talking about is in that class, I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I offer this to people in my group and my one-on-ones too, because I think it really helps them. But the PowerPoint is all about what's in it for the agent when they work with you. So it's not about staging. And again, one of the things that we focus on in this PowerPoint that I gave them for that class is that you take the National Association of Realtors stats, and then you break it down to show them what it means to them in dollars. So on a $500,000 house, you know, this is what the stats are saying, and this is what it would mean in dollars for your seller, and this is what it would mean in dollars for you. And even if it's like, you know, $1,000 more for you in that particular sale, multiply it times how many sales a year you do. So, you know, kind of really connecting the dots for the agents. Also, how you help elevate their brand by their listings, how sometimes people disqualify them just based on their online listings, because they want an agent that is going to present their listings better than that, right? So really educating the agents on how they can use you because of what's in it for them. Thank you though, Karen, for mentioning that. Thank you. Well, you have this taped and you guys can look at it again. And, you know, the questions that I asked, like ask yourself those questions, start looking at your business critically, know the numbers, and then, you know, really think about it. If I'm spending 40 hours a week in my business and 20 of them are non-billable hours, am I really charging enough? Right?
Yeah. That's what I get. Yeah.
Another thing, one last thing I'm going to say is that I think stagers need to get out there more, and not in a derogatory way toward agents. You got to be careful about how you do it, but say, like I put out a post that, you know, buyers look at, you know, according to the National Association of Realtors, buyers agents view staged 82% of buyers agents view staged homes as, you know, once they want to move in, or whatever the terminology was. And then I wrote, you know, staging is effective in any market to help you get top dollar. Why leave money on the table? And if your agent isn't recommending that you work with a stager, I would ask why. So you're not like, you've got to be really careful about how you say it. But I think that more and more sellers have to have that expectation too. And it's our job to get out there and let them know. I mean, you know, they need to hear it over and over and over again. Even in a hot market, staging works. Use those examples of houses that have sold for so much more over asking price. You know, that's validation, and that's where your value is, you know.